Over the past week, there was tons of news coverage kind of focused from St. John's over the submersible that was going to the Titanic wreck that got lost. A lot of people have made it clear that they've never heard of this place. Some people mention things like, I never knew that a place called Newfoundland existed. Well, it doesn't, but I get what they're trying to say. One of the coolest things for me with talking about Newfoundland and travel or moving to Newfoundland types of videos that I make, it's the fact that there are people that know everything that I'm talking about intimately, and sometimes it really gives them a warm feeling to hear about Newfoundland and St. John's in particular, which I'm most familiar with, but people get a nice feeling when they hear somebody talking about it. On the other side of the coin, you have a place that is almost completely unknown to a lot of people, and you can talk about things that are, the worst kept secrets in Newfoundland to Newfoundlanders, but a lot of people, I would say many more people, have no idea about these places. I'm specifically, of course, talking about the Downtown Pedestrian Mall, the George Street Festival, and the Royal St. John's Regatta. These three places located in downtown St. John's or very close to downtown St. John's will appeal to you if you're a people person, if you enjoy crowds. And I understand that not everybody fits that mold. Some people just don't want to be around crowds at all. Some people come to Newfoundland because it is so far away from everything else and you're looking for something different. So this short list isn't meant to appeal to everybody. These are three things that I really enjoy, and based on the amount of people that take part in these events, a lot of people enjoy them, but I know that not everybody will. The St. John's Downtown Pedestrian Market, which runs basically from the end of June through the beginning of September. There's the George Street Festival, which runs from usually the last week of July into the Regatta, which is always scheduled for the first Wednesday of August. 2020, with the pandemic, the first year that the pedestrian mall took effect, they did that kind of with the pandemic in mind, to get people out of their houses and into the open air, and the situation was handled kind of better than other places in Newfoundland, so they felt like it was safe enough to do it. And I don't know if they meant for it to be kind of like a one-off just because of the pandemic in 2020, but they probably realized that they had something that was potentially going to be an annual thing, and that's kind of where we are right now. It was a big success in 2020, and in 2021 there's still a lot of those same challenges that 2020 carried over, but now it's become kind of like an expected event, and it works for the majority of the businesses and for a lot of the residents and visitors as well. So it seems like it's become a regular event for the city that people look forward to basically from the end of June until the beginning of September every year now. Up until this year, it ran from Ayers Cove to Prescott Street, if I remember correctly. I don't think it's going to reach to Prescott this year, but it's still going to be a big chunk of Water Street. They have incorporated Duckworth in the past. There's still going to be little parklets, I believe they call them, little sidewalk patios that businesses can use, but they're not going to close the street off to traffic like they did last year. It just didn't quite work out as well on Duckworth as it did on Water Street. On Water Street, it was a complete hit. Some businesses don't really benefit much from that type of a draw. Largely, people enjoyed coming to Water Street, whether to shop or hit up one of the restaurants or sidewalk pubs, or if it was just to walk around and people watch. Early in the mornings, the streets are open for things like deliveries and some traffic, but basically the section of Water Street that's included in the mall is shut down to traffic completely. Some of the cross streets will open periodically as traffic needs to get through, and there's safety measures in place to make sure that cars can get through throughout the day. The reason I like it so much is simply because you're outdoors in the city, and so many people are drawn to this, so there's crowds of people milling about. Like I said, some people actually shopping or eating, other people are just out for a walk with their kids or their dog, just enjoying the scenery. People have issues with parking, as they do throughout the year. There's plenty of parking available, it just might not be right where you want to get out and spend your time. You might have to do a little bit of walking, but that's the nature of living in a city. Accessibility for all of these events has really become kind of a big focus. The pedestrian mall is probably the best example where concerted efforts have been put in to improve on where they've come up short in that first year. The curbs were a big issue. There are lots of seating areas that are designed with accessibility in mind. So they've really improved on a lot of areas where they came up short in that first year. George Street is pretty well known for being a street with one of the highest concentrations of pubs in all of North America. It's a small street, but there's dozens of places to go for a drink or a bite to eat. There are events held throughout the year on George Street, like Mardi Gras around Halloween, concerts throughout the summer, but the key event for George Street throughout the year is pretty much every year the George Street Festival. Usually runs for about a week. This year is going to be the 38th running of the festival, and it's been a big success. Basically every single night of the festival is bumping. Weather can be an issue sometimes, and that does affect the size of the crowds on a particular night. But in most cases, people come out rain or shine, depending on who the headliner or the theme of the concert is for that particular night. Saturday night's usually a kitchen party night, and you usually have a lot of local acts performing traditional Newfoundland music. For as long as I can remember, Tuesdays have been the Regatta Roulette night, and it seems like Shanneyganock play most years. And it's another typically traditional Newfoundland music style night, but it's a good time. The Regatta Roulette thing, we'll talk about that in a minute, but the idea of regatta falling on a Wednesday and being a weather-dependent holiday leads to a little bit of fun on a Tuesday night where you don't necessarily know if you're actually going to get the municipal holiday on the Wednesday. Outside of the city of St. John's, Regatta Wednesday is not offered as a holiday in any case, so it doesn't really matter too much, but it's basically a city holiday in the city of St. John's. So going out for, in my opinion, the greatest night of George Street every year, the Tuesday night, you're taking a risk that you never quite know what's going to happen. Last year, 2022, the regatta was actually postponed by a day, and it was the first time in 15 years or so. It's like, it does happen where the regatta gets postponed by a day due to weather, winds, rains, whatever the case may be. But last year was the first time it was postponed due to weather in about 15 years. So going out on the Tuesday night, if you didn't already assure yourself that you were off on that Wednesday, you probably had a rough morning. But that's just part of the fun. Crowds are big, you're not getting around the street very easily once the concerts start, but when the music ends at, I believe, about 11 o'clock, or maybe like a little bit earlier than at 10 or 11 o'clock, the street is just open. You can walk around the street with your drinks, pop into the different clubs. I believe all cover charges are covered by the fee to get on the street, by your ticket for the festival that night. And I think if you come after the concerts are over, you still pay a single admission fee for the entire street, and it'll be a reduced rate compared to if you show up for the concert itself. I'm getting older now. I'm not into partying on the street as much as I would have been, in my younger years, but it's still a great concert, great atmosphere, and if you are into partying, it's a great party after as well. The George Street Festival, again, old street. There's been improvements made with the individual businesses that exist on the street. Accessibility is definitely an issue in an old city like St. John's. Planning did not take accessibility into account really at all. But with the crowds and the concert area, they have made some improvements to really help out. My favorite day of the summer, pretty much every year in St. John's, is Regatta Day. The weather typically agrees, but usually if it's really bad, they'll postpone the event. I can only remember being postponed a couple of times, so although the possibility is always there, and you have to wake up at like 6 or 7 in the morning just to find out if the regatta is going to go ahead and if you're actually going to get a holiday. But it was canceled altogether in 2020 due to the pandemic, and that was one of the first times since, I believe, since the war that it was canceled. But most years it goes ahead on the Wednesday. In 2018, it was actually the 200th running of the Royal St. John's Regatta. It's the longest continuously running sporting event in North America. That's its claim to fame. Although there was a hiccup during the pandemic and during World War II, it still is considered a continuously running event. As I said at the beginning, if you're not interested in crowds, you're not going to be interested in the regatta. And that makes sense. There's a lot of reasons to go, but there's also a lot of reasons to stay away because it's tightly packed with people for an entire day, usually in some summery heat. It can be a lot to handle, but if you do enjoy people watching and you enjoy raffles and games of chance and Crown and Anchor, it's the type of place where you can go for a single day and just kind of enjoy summer with a big portion of the city of St. John's. There's an area for kids where you can play kids games, ride little ponies around a circle, get your face painted.
There's also a beer garden if you're into that. Then there's lots of games going around most of the lake.
So a regatta by definition is a boat race. But the regatta for me is the garden party. I mean, we would actually pay attention to the boat races a little bit because there's activity going on, especially the championship races. They're a lot of fun. That's kind of the end of the day and you're kind of spent with the games and just the people, I guess, in general. But it's like the reason for the event to actually take place is these races, but it was never the main focus for me. And I think for the 50,000 people or so that show up every year, it's there, and a lot of people do really pay attention to it, but it just isn't really the main event for the majority of the big crowd, in my opinion.
There's such a diametric between the people that know everything that I talk about like the back of their hand, and a lot of people that have no idea. Some people create really interesting videos that are like the top 10 places that you've never heard of to come visit. And this is not meant to be one of those videos, but for a lot of people it will be. In my opinion, the pedestrian market is a fantastic way to spend your day, and you have almost 2.5 months to enjoy that depending on your schedule. The George Street Festival is scheduled over the course of a week. Depending on the lineup for any particular night, you can choose, which day you'd like to go and attend that. The regatta is a one-day event. If you book a holiday and the event gets postponed, you can be out of luck. My dad worked for the post office, so he never got the municipal holiday, but he would go to work, get off early as he could that day, and we would go down together. But it's a little tricky because it is a municipal holiday on a Wednesday. That's weather dependent. You do what you can with it, but if there's any kind of hiccups with weather or anything, you can be out of luck. There's so many more things that you can do in St. John's, of course. This isn't like these are the only 3 things. For music, you have the folk festival, maybe the Peace Accord, does that still happen? The Music NL summer music series at the Rooms. There's so many different places and venues for music, indoors and outdoors throughout the summer. You have 2 amazing parks in the city, Bowering Park and Bannerman Park. There's others as well, but those are my 2 favorites. There's so much that you can do, but the 3 biggest events on a lot of scales will be the pedestrian market, the regatta, and the George Street Festival. I went into a little bit of detail on these 3 destinations for places that you can go in the summer in the city of St. John's. If you got a vehicle and you got some time and you're looking for a few ideas on what you can do outside the city of St. John's, check out this video right here for a couple of suggestions.